Okay, the sausage roll as a whole,
Oh no.
okay,
We're back.
is 20%.
Yes.
As you say.
Yes.
Now, the filling is 36% pork.
But-
So a third of the inside,
Yeah.
which is where all the sausage meat is 36%. Then it's all the other crap.
Well, you just said it was 20%. How can it be 20% and then when it's in the filling, 36%?
Great. Now, as a whole, a sausage roll is made up of pastry and the
Yeah.
sausage filling, right?
Correct.
So the whole sausage roll,
Yeah.
including the pastry as
Yeah.
part of the percentage, is 18%
18% now.
of 20. 18%.
You wouldn't make a very good politician, would you? I reckon Laura Kunzberg's going to rip you apart someday.
No, this is very okay. I think I'm trying to think because it's obvious to me in my head because
I understand. I actually do.
You do understand?
I do understand. What you're
Okay,
saying, yes.
the whole sausage roll, 18% pork. The filling, which
Yeah.
is the sausagey bit,
Yeah.
is 36%
Of the sausage roll.
of the sausage filling.
The sausage.
The sausage.
The sausage.
filling.
Okay, the sausage roll, 18%. The
Yeah.
sausage filling,
Yes.
36.
So
Yeah,
you
you
were to
get the
take all the
point.
pastry off.
Yes.
You were left with the sausage.
Yes.
Which is 36%.
Yes. But what I said
It's
was,
still not a lot.
It's
No.
still not a lot. I'm not saying it's not,
No,
but
but-
it
no,
gives
that-
you a false reading. If you say it's 20% sausage, everybody thinks, oh shit, it's really low. And then when it's 36%, it's not that bad.
no, I didn't say the sausage. I said the 20% pork in the sausage.
No, it's 20% pork in the sausage roll
Yes.
as a whole. It's different.
Including as a percentage
Including
of
as a
the
percentage.
pastry is what he's saying.
right.
If you were to remove the pastry,
Yeah.
and look at the sausage,
Yes.
36% of that sausage,
Of the sausage.
of the sausage,
Yeah.
forget the pastry,
Yeah.
of the sausage is pork. So 36% of what they are claiming to be pork
Yeah.
is pork.
So how can they state 20% on the label is pork?
Because that includes the pastry.
It's the pastry. The whole thing.
It's like, okay, here's a hypothetical.
Take out the custard and the
Yes.
it's hard.
No, let's say that this is your pastry.
You've got to eat that now because you've touched it.
Let's say that this is your pastry, yeah, and this is your sausage,
Yes.
okay? That makes up 100% of the product.
Correct.
I have never ever argued in your favour in my life, by the way. This is a first for me.
I know, it's really fun. Isn't it?
Actually arguing on behalf of Matthew. This is weird.
Yeah.
Pastry,
Yeah.
sausage,
Yeah.
36%.
Very good. Can you describe what you're...
I'm holding up what are they called?
Just say you're holding up a plate.
And
Portuguese tart.
I'm holding up
Portuguese tart.
Portuguese tart.
Yeah.
The Portuguese tart, 36% of that
Yeah.
is pork.
Yeah.
None of that is pork.
Correct.
These two together make up 100% of the product.
Now pop it in.
Yeah.
Now, as a total, the amount of pork as a percentage has now been reduced because it is now 0 pork, 36%, but I've now got a larger product.
Yeah.
You've got it right.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Nice.
wow. Okay.
And I don't want to dwell on it. So.
I think this is really exciting.
So here it is. It's the podcast nobody asked for. 3 guys in a kitchen, drinking coffee and having a chat.
And you know my favourite chefs, I've got Ottolenghi, I've got Rachel Roddy, I've got Ishta Belfrage. There's also numbers of those. But the one person that I never really had anything much to do with, because I thought was a bit stylish, a bit la-di-da, was Heston Blumenthal.
Okay.
He's got his problems at the moment, poor Heston Blumenthal.
So
Has he?
yesterday morning, I would just happen to be listening to the radio, as I always do, and they were interviewing Heston Blumenthal, and I was really taken by his conversation. So he was talking about his diagnosis for bipolar, and it was amazing because in all of this, what I like about these kind of conversations is that it brings it to the attention of people. People who may have gone through it, and people who may be going through it, or people who have people in their lives that may be going through it, but they don't realize.
Okay.
Right. And therefore they don't do anything about it. And that's the important thing, that people understand what other people are going through and therefore help to navigate through it. So it was similar with Heston Blumenthal, because he said he didn't realize that he had bipolar for some 9 years or something like that. And, he just assumed that some of the symptoms that he was having were just kind of, quirky, normal, abnormal, whatever, but nothing really too much to worry about. And it was only when his behavior became, vulnerable in certain ways, that his wife was then forced to section him. And he then went into a mental health institution and was treated for his bipolar. And so he describes what I really like about it. He actually describes some of the symptoms and what he went through. And
I don't know any of the symptoms, so can you share what he mentioned?
Well, bipolar is a mood disorder, right? So you have your highs and you have your lows. Well, your highs are when you're really excited, really energetic. You talk a lot, you do a lot, and you can become kind of unstable in a lot of ways if it gets to that kind of peak level, and that makes you kind of at odds with people normally in the environment that you're in, right? The downs of it are the usual kind of depression kind of symptoms. When you can't be bothered to do anything, you lie in bed all the time, you're feeling awful, and you might feel suicidal, right?
A lot more range and variation to that as well. It's not like that.
No.
That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying it's exactly that. That's just a good example.
It's a typical of the symptoms.
Yeah.
It's not an on and off.
No.
It's not one or the other permanently.
No.
It's
roughly.
You can have your up and down within a few days, or it can be you can have your up for several weeks and you're down for several weeks, and then you might be completely okay for a long, long time too, right? So.
But the person who has it doesn't know they've got it.
They depends. That's called insight. That's something that if people recognize that they've got it, they realize they've got it because they know about it, and they suddenly feel that their symptoms are such that maybe I'm having an event or an episode, right?
Because most people have ups and downs, don't we? We have good days and bad days. It's got to be
excessive.
Yes.
Height of it.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is also associated with bipolar and your manic episodes, etc., is psychosis. The idea that you can hear and see things that aren't really there. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean? But you absolutely believe that they are there. And there's no way that anybody says anything that can deter you from thinking that. All right. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that, that I have a lot of stuff to deal with, people who are carers for people with, kind of mental health conditions like that. What you don't hear quite often is the person themselves describing and talking about what they've gone through. And that's really revelatory.
Yeah.
And it's very important and very useful for us to understand that. So he talks about his symptoms and the things that he's gone through. One of the things that was asked of him was that, did it impact on your daily activities? Like your cooking and your development of recipes and stuff like that, your running of the restaurant and things like that. And one of the things he came back and said was that there was a time when he had his manic episode that he would actually think about a creation, right, of a dish, which was never likely to happen, but he absolutely thought it would happen, right? Because he was in such a heightened, creative condition that made him think that he could do that. Mm-hmm. And then he adds to that actually one of your other symptoms is this feeling of invulnerability.
I know the words.
Not the right word.
Yeah, well, maybe it's not. But the idea that you can do anything.
Yes.
You can be the king of the world and you can do absolutely anything.
Invincibility. There you go.
Yeah. And so I was really kind of taken by his description of all that. And like I say, I think it's important for people to understand some of that.
Well, they do say genius is borderline on,
Yeah.
being manic and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And if you look at him in his height, nobody could hold a torch to him because he came with all these wonderful deconstructed menus and food types, and it was more the spectacle rather than the food itself. The food was a prerequisite. They knew the food was going to be good.
Yeah.
It's how he delivered it to the table.
Yeah.
Was his.
We used to have that show for a long time doing certain themes, and those themes were always incredible.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point of it. That I mean, there are people who have the condition that can actually manage their condition, right? So it's the idea that you recognise it's coming on, so you take some treatment or whatever, or those are the peaks and troughs, the highs and lows. But there will be a lower peak and a lower trough, which actually keeps them, kind of reasonably stable. But they can be creative in the way that we've just described.
Yeah. And that's interesting that
Stephen Fry, for instance.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he's a very creative guy, comedian, but he's had some really difficult times.
I think Stu's right saying that about being creative has a lot, it's a lot of people that struggle with their mental health are very creative. There seems to be something hand in hand with the two things, doesn't
The
it?
point about it is that one of the things about being high, in your kind of manic state, is that you have your thoughts run away with you, right? It's like you can actually find the solutions for things that you didn't think you needed solutions for, because your mind is racing massively. So when it gets to a point where it's not manageable, which means that you get to a point where your thoughts are running with you so much that you can't sleep, right? And it's that lack of sleep over periods of days and stuff that then gets you into much more difficult things.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is that you can be at a level where, you're not at those peaks, but you can be very, very creative when you want to.
Yeah. It's interesting that he's able to put it into words, because I think that when it comes to sort of things like that, whether it be bipolar or depression or any of those things, it's so difficult to try and put into words what that feeling actually is. And I always admire people that I can talk openly about my mental health, but I find it difficult to describe sometimes how certain things feel. So when I've had moments of severe depression, like really severe depression, the only way that I'm able to sort of explain it is to say that there's been times in my life where I've felt so low that you could turn up outside my house with a Ferrari, with £1 million in cash, tickets to anywhere in the world, and anything and everything that you could ever possibly want. And I don't just mean necessarily even material things, but even the people that you love and care about could all be there, and this is what everybody you love, everybody that we're all going to go on a cruise around the world, and money's no object, and we can do whatever we want with all the people that we care about. When I've been as low as I have been at times in my life, I would swap all of that to make that feeling go away. I'm not bothered about what there is out there. I just want that feeling to go away. But that's the best that I can ever do to describe it. And it's hard to sort of put into words and explain to people who perhaps haven't had depression or haven't suffered from bipolar or whatever, to actually try and explain just how it actually feels. Because you can look at me and sort of go, well, okay, but you'll still never truly understand what that feeling is like until you have actually been there. And that's also not to say that somebody else with depression might not feel the same way as I do. It's a very personal interpretation.
And it's the depth of those depressions that makes them different from another person's. And it's like the highs of it. And Heston Blumenthal describes this, that when you are high, you absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And the last thing you want is for somebody to stop that.
Yeah.
Right? By saying, oh, you need some treatment or whatever. Bugger off. I love this. Yeah. Right? And in a way, that's to kind of bring it back to my situation with my wife, when she was going through her manic episodes, loving it, absolutely loving it. And whatever I did, whether it was to get her in front of somebody that can help her or whatever, she didn't want that.
No, she was happy with where she was.
She turned against me for that reason. I mean, she was pretty awful with me because I was the person that was trying to, she thought, stop her from feeling the way that she did.
Yeah. But you were, in a way.
Of course. Not stop it, but to get her help so that the excesses of because the behaviour that it created was very risky, right? She could be running out in the streets to that level.
Wow.
Through pubs.
Wow.
I've done all of that. Chased her around. Right? So you don't need that. And so you try your best to try. But by the way, that's assuming that I understood what the hell was going on. Because at that time I had no idea. What the hell's this all about?
Yeah, you're just trying to,
trying to contain it.
Yeah.
It's only later on as I begin to get involved in the mental health service, getting involved with the carers groups and things like that, that I become more educated about what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
I even actually thought that she was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Doing everything to create this horrible situation on purpose. It's only when you go into it you realise that actually they can't help it.
No.
They don't even know what's going on. Right? It's just a bit. Sorry, I didn't.
No.
I don't want to bring it down, but I just thought I really. I mean, when you are involved in this, it's really nice. It's really good to think that the events like this program, this thing yesterday, I think probably did more to alert people, right, than anything that I can talk about. And he's also become, I think he's also now become an advocate, or is part of some bipolar awareness campaign, which is great because he says, in life you always think that at some point you want to give something back.
Yeah.
And for him, that was the way to do it.
Oh, look.
There you go.
Ta-da.
Right, what else do you want to talk about?
What else we got?
No, I haven't contributed much to that, but the reason is that I think this is a modern condition, and the reason I say that, well, just let me finish and then I'll open up. Okay. When I look back to when I was a child, not a child as such, but a teenager, I don't remember anybody that I crossed having a mental illness. And by that I mean they probably did, but it wasn't acknowledged, right? And as a child you'd go, oh, there's that nutter again, right? You'd use that word because that's what you would connect to.
Yes.
What I'm concerned about is we use it too easily nowadays. And by that I mean, in the education society, we're seeing so many children now with ADHD. We're seeing so many children with learning. We're seeing so many children with discipline problems. We're seeing there's all these things. And the latest thing is E-numbers. Don't give your kids all these E-numbers because they just go hyper, right? And I'm just a little bit, are we just going a little bit too quick to go and diagnose something without really understanding the root cause? And the reason I use this thought process is, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but when I was coaching, we had kids playing football that came from an environment that was never going to be good for them. Both parents were drug addicts, or the dad was a repeat offender who's always in and out of prison, right? So those children were surrounded by these influencers didn't have mobile phones in those days. They didn't have laptops and iPads, but they had the ability to observe adults who dealt with things in different ways that most society didn't deal in those same ways. And kids being kids with like a sponge mentality, they absorb it. And because they're always surrounded by that, they think that's the norm.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm just a little bit like, whoa, let's just slow down this...
Labeling.
Yeah, and just really understand what's causing that. So if you don't mind...
Yeah.
You were saying about your scenario when you were really depressed. Yeah? Rightly or wrongly, I'm not medically trained. But I would like to think there was something that triggered that. Some situation, some episode, something that made you go into that dark place. Because you have to be exposed to it to react to it. Because, you know, I've had times when I've felt a little bit alone and not able to deal with stuff, but I've got the ability just to come out of it. I didn't go down the route of going to the doctor and saying, look, doctor, I'm really struggling sleeping. I've really got a load of pressure on at work and at home, my children, my wife. I never went down that route. I'm not saying it's not available, but I think everybody deals with things differently.
Okay, you asked the question of Vandy. You answer that first, and then I'll try and describe what I want to do.
So I will give you an example of, in my memory, one of the worst periods of depression that I've got. In fact, probably off the top of my head, the worst period that I went through. And it started in August of 2012.
Okay.
And it's very strange because I can remember where I was, where I was and when it happened, when I just suddenly got this fit. So to go back to 2012 for me, Isabel was 18 months old.
Okay.
I was in pretty at the time, pretty happy relationship. It didn't end up being that way a few years later, but at the time it was okay. It was fine. I was pretty happy in my work, pretty happy in my personal life. And we went on holiday to Blackpool for a week. And it was
depress anybody.
Enough, wasn't it? No, to be fair, you're probably right. If you're looking for a trigger, it was Blackpool. No, I do remember. It was strange. I want to say that I'll cut this out because I just want to make sure that I've got the...
It was interesting the way you described the setting the scene there. You were pretty happy. You were pretty...
I would say... I can't remember the name of the person who I was going to Google because I remember it, but it was somebody died.
Right. Right.
It was somebody in the... It was somebody famous, and I can't remember who it was. I was trying to get but somebody famous died. And I remember being in a hotel room, reading the article on my phone, and out of literally nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, I just got this horrible, sick to my stomach, horrible feeling about my life. Just in general.
So something...
But I can't say to you, like I say, yes, I was pretty. I wasn't, you know... Was I over the moon? Was I perfectly happy? I've been happier. I've been sadder in my life circumstances than I was at that point. It doesn't feel to me like there was anything particularly going on in my life. There wasn't any particular... Yes, I had an 18-month-old child, but, you know, it comes with its...
With stresses.
Difficulties,
absolutely.
but it also comes with its pleasures. That's never sort of... It wasn't something that I can say was triggering for that. But I remember being in that hotel room and just all of a sudden... just this such an overwhelming... This is where I find it difficult to articulate the feeling because I can't put it into words what I felt, but just this whole hopelessness. What was the point of absolutely everything? Just in an instant, I just suddenly lost the capability to find happiness in anything. And when I say anything, I don't mean in what I was doing right there and then. I tried to look forward in my life and tried to think, I'm going to look forward to going on holiday. I'm going to look forward to doing something with my career. I'm going to look forward to every single moment in my mind at that point in time. Is there something in your head right now that think about the future, right? Like anybody, like you three or anybody listening, think about the future and just imagine that every single thing that you think about in the future, you don't want.
You don't want.
You don't want. You don't want, or you can't see it bringing you any pleasure, ever. And that lasted from August 2012 until probably May 2013. It was that period of time where every single thing in my mind, every single thing that I was trying to find pleasure in, I couldn't create anything there or in the future that was making me happy. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like a complete loss of...
So my question would be there, who did you speak to about that?
Several people.
And who were they? Don't go into the names specific, but who were they? Were they close family?
Close family.
Were they strangers?
Friends.
Was it medical doctors? Who was it?
So a mixture of all.
Okay.
I went to the doctor.
Yeah.
I spoke to family, close family.
And what did the doctor prescribe?
So I'd already previously been on antidepressants. I was first prescribed them when I was 17.
Okay.
And I'd stopped taking them, and he put me back on them.
So this wasn't your first time?
Wasn't my first time, no.
So
straight away, you mentioned 2012 when you were how old?
22, no. I was born in 86, so 86, 96, 2006.
13. 28.
27.
27. So 10 years prior to that was your first episode?
Yes.
So at 17, let's go back to 17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At 17, can you remember?
Oh, I remember the week, yeah.
Okay, so...
Same thing.
Okay, so something would have triggered that event when you were 17. And the reason I used that as a thought process is there was an issue a week ago where a parent had a phone call from the police to say they'd arrested her son, 12, 13-year-old son. Her explanation was her son's feral. She can't control him, right? He just doesn't do anything. He doesn't go to school. He's out doing no good. Nothing at all.
Oh, hang on, was this on LBC?
No, this is something local.
That was something that happened as well.
So anyway, this child, right, is just out of control. The mum can't do anything. The mum works. She's a nurse and she can't, she's trying to keep the house. She's trying to keep the bills and everything. But the son will not do what his mum tells it. He's feral. Yeah? Goes out, whatever he wants to do. And when I was told this story, the first question I asked was, is she married? Is she divorced? Is the father around? No father. And when you start looking into things like that as an example of why children do what they do, there's something that's caused that child to be like that. Because most kids don't want to be feral.
No.
Right? So something somewhere started. It could be that the marriage broke down. It could be something happened in the marriage. I don't know. But the point I'm saying is there's always something that triggers this. You might have the odd one exception where
you're kind of pushing for one particular answer that
I'm not.
Narrative rather than what might be a different narrative.
No, I'm not. I'm saying there's always something
that
starts it.
Let me try and enlighten you a little bit if I can get properly. I might not do, but let's try. So when we have carers in our group that come to us who have gone through some really difficult times by then, and there's not particularly, but in many instances, it's parents looking after kids, children, young adults or older adults who've got mental health problems, right? And one of the biggest emotion that they come out with is guilt, right? And the guilt is about, had I done something differently, this might not have happened. Right? That's the first thing that they come up with. And the job that we have then is to try and kind of make them aware of potentially where those conditions come from. Right? So, mental health conditions can come from family history. Right? If you've got history in the family, you are more vulnerable to mental health conditions. And I say that importantly, vulnerable. That doesn't mean just because you've got family history that you have it.
Can I just very briefly, and I'm just to jump in on, and what was very strange, again, was another midwife conversation. They asked Charlie a series of questions about her family's medical history. And they asked me a set of questions, and they asked her first, and they said, have you got any history of mental health issues in your family? And she said, no. So I was waiting for them to ask me the same question, but they didn't.
Okay.
So
I don't know why the questions were asked.
It's just that perhaps they're not, that's not perceived in all areas.
So family history makes you vulnerable to it, doesn't trigger it, isn't a thing that makes you ill, unwell, or have mental health problems, but it makes you vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
The other things that make you vulnerable to it are things like traumas during birth, for instance, right? Or some kind of...
Sorry, before you move on, when you mean trauma during birth, is that for both the infant and for the mother? And for the father?
Well, for the mother, almost possibly, but I'm thinking more of the infant.
Okay.
In terms of trauma, in terms of the way that the birth came about, maybe breathing difficulties, or those kind of medical, physical things.
Okay.
That can, because it's all about brain development, right?
Yeah.
And the impact that might can and have on it, or it can be other injuries or something like that. Late, kind of early on in life when your brain is being developed. So it was family history, traumas during birth, etc., or something else that kind of causes further trauma later on. Those things make you vulnerable to mental health problems. Doesn't give it to you. What does then give you those mental health conditions is a trigger. Right? And those triggers can be all sorts of things. Yeah. Quite often, bereavement is a big one.
Yeah.
Right? When you lose somebody, or you in grief and that can trigger off. And I've had incidents of that within, it can be, one of the biggest one of the biggest ones that we have within the group of carers that we have are people whose children first go to university.
And they've left the home, haven't they?
They've left the comfort of the home, and they've gone to then fend for themselves. They're in a situation where they're having to deal with new people, new relationships. And when you talk about the modern world, this is a modern thing. Yeah, it is. Mental health has been going on for centuries. It's not a modern thing. It's not a modern thing. What has changed is the other vulnerability. The other vulnerability can be environmental and social things, right? That can make you vulnerable to it. Okay. So when you talk about it being modern, it's a modern thing. You're kind of right in a way, right? For two reasons. One is that you're actually recognizing it more. Yeah. Because we're more aware of it. Yeah. And there's more treatments for it. So there's more chances that you'll get treatments for it. That's absolutely right. The other thing that's that the modern world gives you, particularly for young people, is the stresses and strains and the challenges that they have to go through because of social media. Correct. Quite often.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So So I kind of agree with you, Stu, but I think it's slightly kind of narrow. Slightly narrow.
Yeah.
I think that the reasons for it happening is already there in a way.
Yeah.
But the modern world makes it even more stressful. Now,
Also, is there not an element that the modern world recognise it and can diagnose it?
yeah, I've already said that. No, I did say that. The fact is that we recognise it more. We know that we can treat it more, right? So it's more prominent, more. We're more aware of it, because that's where you say, it's rife now, or is it rife, or is it that we just do it?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily think that social media, yes, it affects mental health.
Yeah.
No more so than perhaps other things would have affected mental health 50 years ago. It would have had the same impact.
Yeah.
It's just,
well,
this is different. It's not necessarily worse.
Yeah, it's different, but it's more prominent.
It's more prominent, but it's not necessarily.
And more people are becoming affected by it.
Yeah.
Because of social media.
I do think, personally, we have a responsibility to really understand what's going out on these platforms. And it's only going to get worse, by the way. And that is evident. People are already saying now with this AI technology, they can make it deep fake and all that type of stuff. And my children will look at something and they will look at that and think, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely going to happen. Yeah. Dr. Google, as we said earlier. And my job as a parent is to say to my kids, okay, investigate a bit more. Don't take it on face value.
Yeah, because if you type anything into Google now, Google, I've not tried whether you can or can't turn it off, but if I go on my phone and I Google something, it used to, 12 months ago, but maybe even 6 months ago, come up with a list of websites.
Yeah, the cookies.
With the word, give me the information that I have asked for. So, for example, how much pork is in a sausage roll?
Yeah.
And it used to go if it was like how much pork is in a Greggs sausage roll, the top result would be the Greggs website.
Yes.
Because then I can go on there and I can find out.
Yeah.
But now, what Google is doing is that the first result you get is called AI overview.
Oh,
it's the top result that you get on, as soon as you type anything in, it's Gemini AI overview,
right.
Which is where Google, instead of just pointing you in the direction of finding the information, is in an instant,
give you the answer,
reading through all of the articles that it can find any information from and going, put it together. Brilliant. And that's absolutely incredible and amazing that within a matter of milliseconds, Google's got the ability to be able to go away, go through all those websites, read them all in an instant and compile something that makes sense and just deliver it to you.
Yeah.
But there isn't anything that stops Google from going into websites. So it would, let's take the sausage roll example. Google will go into, don't laugh, it's a valid point.
No, it's just the word sausage roll again. Go on.
If somebody, I've got a question about sausage rolls. If somebody has written an article that says that a Greggs sausage roll contains 15% pork, let's not go back to that argument, but it contains fat. And then another person has read that article and written another article. Google goes away and finds 20 articles that tell you that a Greggs sausage roll contains 15% pork. The Greggs website, the one actual factual website, tells you that it contains 40%. Google will disregard where the information has come from, it will disregard its credibility or its validity. It will go with the most popular, the one that is so if you ask Google how much pork is in a sausage roll, it will give you the most popular answer, not necessarily the accurate one, the factual one.
And that's why...
And that's what goes back to what you were saying.
Exactly.
It's dangerous. Because it's not... You get that answer and you go, oh, that's a fact.
Yeah.
But actually it's not.
But coming back to what Ash was describing, I think that's important to carry on, is that it's not modern day. It's been going for time immemorial. What I said at the beginning is I can't generally recollect somebody with mental illness. The only thing I can remember, right, was a good friend of mine who was fine one day and then developed glandular fever. Okay? And this guy, lovely guy, he was 16 years of age, developed glandular fever. 16 years old, we're playing around. I'm not going to say his name, but, he's not out to play with us, right? We didn't knock on his door. We just thought he's not coming out to play. 2 or 3 days later, he knocks on my door. I'm not in, and my dad answers, and it's this lad asking for me, and he's completely covered in sweat, absolutely sodden, right? His mum came down, apologised to my dad. I said, no, it's okay. And then we found out he had glandular fever. He was never the same again. Never the same again.
That's the trigger.
Right? And he had that as his trigger. And years later, he's now still with us, but mentally, his brain stopped developing. And he was not the same guy that I went on holiday with his mum and dad. And it was that triggered it.
So what you said was that you didn't remember many people having mental health problems.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't. We just thought that somebody was acting strangely.
Yes.
Or like you said, what a mental, what an idiot or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, those people probably did have those.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to go back too far. The treatments for mental health were a lobotomy and
shock treatment and all that sort of
stuff. It's not far away.
But also, there was a stigma around talking about people with mental health problems.
And that's the bit I want you to go into, because for me, I'm thinking, have we just gone, as I said earlier, from A to Z? Could one of the treatments be what you guys are doing here? The amount of people I'm speaking to, where they tell me they've had an episode. The guy I spoke to you about, he lost his uncle, committed suicide. It affected his nephew so badly, he went to a depressional stage. And his dad said when he started to get out and talk about his feelings, like I was asking you about your feelings, Anne, I think you get more out. You can possibly get more out by just feeling in a safe environment, talking about it, right? As we do this morning, Matt. We have a good old banter. We have a to-in and fro-in. It's not being nasty. It's just giving a form to chat. And I think more guys can go out there and just chat about what they're feeling without the stigma.
Of removing the stigma, though, is a lot harder than it is about something like what we're doing, what we do here, and that's have a chat and have a bit of a laugh and talk about stuff like this, which is serious, and talk about the content of pork sausage rolls, which is not serious. This is an environment, and we're open about having this discussion, and we don't mind, but we also know that there's probably still a lot of people who don't understand this.
No,
and it needs removing the stigma that we've got around this table. Like, we've done that.
Yeah.
Well, we've removed that stigma, but there's still parts of it where you perhaps wouldn't want certain people to know certain things because of how they would judge you.
Yeah, but the hard thing is, we've done this thing. The hardest part is the first one to do it.
Yes.
In a group, the hardest one is the first one to come up. Once it starts, it's like, what's it called? There was a thing. There was a great video. It was a festival, right? And there wasn't much music going on.
I love that t-shirt.
Great.
Have you put that on for a reason?
No, it's just
can you
no one gives it me.
Can you read out what it says on your t-shirt, Matt?
I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right.
There you go.
That's pretty much sums him up.
Yeah, it does.
In a whole.
Yeah. But the thing I was saying, because it's like this festival thing where basically this one guy, he looked crazy, but he was having a dance on his own, and it didn't matter. And then the second guy came in, and then the shorter time, the third guy, and the fourth guy, and then it was just a big old thing and this thing, and that's why it's either a snowball effect. So the hardest part's the first part.
Yeah, no, I agree. But coming back to the podcast that Ash did, right, about his brother, his brother sadly passing away. I didn't know the story. I didn't know the characters. I don't know the people who were sharing their experience. But what was very evident was the value and the power that everybody connected with that got out of it. Now, what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter you're doing a podcast. It doesn't matter in whatever forum. It's the importance of guys getting out there and just talking. It's not, the best thing you can do is show your emotion, right? Get upset, get angry, get all those things out, right? And then you can start building yourself back up again.
But I go back to the fact that there are still lots of people in the world, and it very much. So this is an interesting one for me, okay? Because I've always, for my entire life, gravitated and surrounded myself with people who I've been able to talk to. Some people I won't talk to, but then I don't generally surround myself with those people. I just naturally go towards people. Ash, you know, me and you, we it's only 2 years ago that you and I met, you know, and it's only 6 months since you and I met, Stu.
I know, I'm still traumatised by it.
I can imagine.
So you get through it, you know. It gets easier and easier as time goes on.
But I gravitate towards those people, and so I've never really met blocks in my life where I have felt that I'm not able to be open. So for me, it has always been as simple as you've just said there. We just open up, we just talk. It's fine, because by doing that, you are removing the stigma and you're able to. But it's been easy for me because I've always surrounded myself. Friends and family have always been people who I can talk to and have been open to. But as we know of recent, my environment has changed a little bit, and it's an environment where you are not able to do that. And suddenly you realise
very quickly.
Suddenly you realise that whilst in your world, because you surround yourself with people that are like-minded, because naturally we do. I mean, you always have agreements and disagreements about certain things, but generally, in terms of where you stand morally, your thought process, you surround yourself with people who feel the same way as you do. But when you realise that there is a big world out there where this is not something, there is zero understanding of these things to an extreme degree.
Do you think age has got something to do with this, though?
For me,
bringing that up again.
Well, at least that's the science.
Well, let me explain something, and then sorry, mate, you can come in. You and I had a conversation, Ash, and you said to me, "I don't give a monkeys anymore. I don't care what people think. I'm going to do what I want to do." Go back 30, 40 years.
You say that?
Yeah. Well, you're a bit more polite than that. Yeah. But if you take about 30, 40 years, knowing you as I do, that isn't you. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is, I think with age, you build this thick skin, this resilience. Yeah, resilience. But also, you when you're younger, you want to please everybody, don't you? You want to be liked. You want to be part of the gang.
There's an exception to that, which is the kids who get bullied.
What do you mean?
What I mean is you develop this in over 30 years of whatever.
Yeah.
If you're bullied from a young age, which, you know, I was, you develop that thick skin very quickly and very early because you have to.
Yeah.
He could say whatever he wanted to me in the van or whatever and think, brushed off at age 19. The more adversity, just in general, because you have a life's worth of adversity. If you get it within the space of your first 18 years, you ain't get a body for the next 18.
That's because you've learnt to manage it, really, and you know, that's sad that you had to go through that.
But that's the other part of it, is that the other reason why we've got such young people having a suicide rate is part of that, is they can't manage it.
Yeah,
they can't manage that.
That's right.
It's horrible.
That's a really interesting topic, bullying, and I think that's something we could probly go into.
Oh, yeah, I think probably.
Yeah. What I would say,
I
think you've captured it. What I would say is, if everyone's being totally honest, right? And if you're not going to be honest, then you know there's no point doing any dialogue, any conversation. You have to lay it all out there. I would say most people during their life have an experience of being bullied.
True.
Either physically or verbally.
Yeah.
Okay. I had it. Ash had it. He spoke about it in an earlier podcast. It's how you deal with that bullying. And the way I dealt with it, I had a parent, my mum and my dad, who I could go and talk to. And my dad went and sorted it out because I wasn't able to. I was too young and the people that were bullying me were a lot older. Yeah. And it comes back to that same analogy. Talk about it. Get it out there. And as parents, Matt, you're not a parent in this yet,
no.
But if that comes, you'll understand what I'm going to say. If you can give your children that environment, nothing's off limits. right?
Sure.
Come and talk to me about whatever you're feeling. I may not know all the answers, but trust me, once you talk about it, it becomes a lot easier. The moment you don't start talking about it, it doesn't get easier. It gets harder and harder and harder. And all we're trying to do here is to say to people, talk.